The Social Christ by Samael Aun Weor. Chapter 1: The Individual and Society. The dangerous communist threatens Latin America, and on all sides can be heard the laments of pain. The beautiful Caribbean island of Cuba has been invaded by the barbarous hordes of brutal Marxists. The prisons of Cuba are full of miserable people. As we speak, our beloved America is threatened to death by the overwhelming and brutal avalanche of the abominable communism. The hour has arrived to seriously reflect on our own destiny. The great powers of the world have their eyes fixed on our dear Latin American land. America is an appetizing dish and everyone wants to try it. America has suffered the unspeakable and loves its liberty. America has conquered her independence in the fields of battle. Independence has costed us a lot of blood. We do not deny that there is hunger in Latin America, there is, but it is not with violence that we will overcome the fatal monster of hunger and misery. It is not by surrendering ourselves to the barbarous hordes of Leninist Marxism that we will resolve the problem of hunger. Violence does not resolve anything. Violence only brings us failure. We need peace, serenity, reflection, and comprehension. The problem of the world is the problem of the individual. The revolutions of blood and alcohol do not resolve anything. Only by means of intelligence will we resolve the problem of hunger and misery. Only by means of intelligence can we save our sacred earth. Only with intelligence can we overcome the monster of communism. Latin America is confused and disorientated. We know that the Marxist monster wants to devour us, but we are not going to chain ourselves to slavery. We, the Indo-Americans, are free and we want to conserve our liberty. Human society is the extension of the individual. If we really want a radical change, if we want a better world, a world without hunger, we need to change individually, to change within ourselves, to transform within our own individuality the abominable factors that produce hunger and misery in the world. We need to remember that the mass is a sum of individuals. If every individual changes, the mass would inevitably change. The society is the extension of the individual. If the individual is greedy, cruel, perverse, selfish, etc., the society will be the same. We need to be sincere with ourselves. We, each one of us, is evil, and so society is also inevitably evil. This cannot be resolved by the communist monster, this can only be resolved by the individual. It is urgent to put an end to selfishness and to cultivate Christocentrism. It is the only way we can make a better world. It is indispensable that we eliminate the greed and cruelty that each one of us carries inside. It is the only way. Only by changing the individual will society change, because it is an extension of the individual. There is pain, hunger, confusion, but none of this can be changed by the absurd procedures of violence. Those who want to transform the world by means of revolutions of blood and alcohol or by coups or executions are totally mistaken, because violence only engenders more violence and hate more hate. We need peace if we really want to save Latin America. We will not dispel the darkness with violence, but rather by bringing light. Neither will we dispel error by combating it with violence, but rather by spreading the truth. There is no need to attack error. The more the truth advances, the more error retreats. It is not necessary to avoid evil, but rather to unconditionally practice good, teaching its advantages in deeds. By attacking error, we will provoke hate in those that we hurt, and they will mistakenly react and do wrong. By attacking evil, we provoke revenge in people, making them worse. It is urgent to analyze the fundamental principles of the Marxist dialectic and demonstrate to the world that it does not resist analysis, because it is purely cheap tricks. We need to make light if we want to overcome the darkness. We do not need to spill more blood. The hour has arrived to be comprehensive. It is necessary for us to study our own eye if we really love our fellow man. It is necessary to understand that only by putting an end to the factors of selfishness and cruelty that each one of us carries inside, can we make a better world, a world without hunger or fear. Society is the individual. The world is the individual. If the individual fundamentally changes, the world will also inevitably change. America is in grave danger, and only by transforming ourselves radically as individuals can we save ourselves and America. Chapter 2: Abandoned Children. We have witnessed in long nights so many hungry and naked children on the streets of the great cities anxiously searching for shelter for the night. We have seen them under dirty newspapers outside the luxurious metropolis. We still hear their voices ringing in our ears, the innocent words of these miserable children: €1 brothra euro cover US up because the moon is bad for US a euro poor thinks a euro dot poor thinks a euro dot poor. Thinks a euro they do not have the expensive toys that bring so much joy to the well-cared for children. For them there are no toys or Christmas parties, for them there are no comforting words that say €1 oh me child €1. When these poor children of the street arrive at a luxurious mansion pleading bread, the elegant dogs that are better looked after than them bark, and the maid of the house shouts from the door: €1 e vagabonds, go to work, don't euro t annoy us, if you continue bothering us I will call the police and they will take you away euro. Sometimes the great gentlemen throw them a coin, or the elegant ladies that proudly walk through the streets give them a piece of bread or a sweet, afterwards feeling immensely satisfied at their great charity. We have seen the poor children of the street desperately pleading with the police that follow them to take them away to prison, or in the best of cases to an orphanage, which is just as bad as the worst kind of prison. Compassion does not exist for these unhappy children that, orphaned, walk the streets, hungry and naked. For them there are no luxurious colleges or beautiful clothes. In reality, the cruelty that each human being carries inside expresses itself outside as a lack of legitimate charity for the abandoned. The individual is cruel and evil, and so is the society that he has created. When will we see the day in which groups of truly charitable men and women will come together and offer these poor children elegant and beautiful homes, colleges, and resplendent dining rooms euro when? When? Only when we comprehend that we are selfish and cruel. We should not justify cruelty. We should not condemn cruelty. If we justify cruelty, we reinforce it. If we condemn cruelty, it disappears from the surface of the mind and submerges into the depths of the mind, assuming new characteristics and forms of expression. It is indispensable to profoundly comprehend cruelty in all levels of the consciousness. This is the only way that cruelty will disappear. This is the only way that something new and spontaneous will be born within us. This something is true conscious charity. It is indispensable that groups of truly charitable people associate to work for abandoned and afflicted children. This is the only way it is possible to provide these poor infants bread, clothing, and shelter. This is the only way it is possible to open colleges for these abandoned children. These lovely children are also human beings. They are no less than anyone else. They are as human as rich children. They are as lovely as the beautiful, elegant children. They have the same rights as the rich, and society should recognize these rights. The cruelty towards these children does not warrant justification. The devotees of all religions, the brothers of all schools, orders, loges, and occult societies could take the initiative and come together to resolve this problem of the abandoned infancy. The hour has arrived to practice the charity taught by the masters and priests of all ages. The words that they spoke amidst the cooing of doves under the sacred gateways of all the temples should now be converted into concrete reality. Conscious charity is the miraculous balm that can console our pained heart. How painful is it to see poor and dirty children, miserable and barefoot, walking in the luxurious streets of the metropolis. The members of all religions, the devotees of all sects, the workers of all factories, the people of all industries should come together and work for these unhappy children. Chapter 3: Accidents of Transit. In a Mexican daily paper we saw an article called €1 oh it was his destiny to die crushed on the road. €1. The text of the article said, €1 oh a half man €1, he didn't euro t have legs, only two pathetic stumps €1, consequence of being hit by a train some time ago, who in life was called Fernando Contreras Moran, was converted into a bloody mass when he was run over last night on the corner of Claudio Bernard Street and Dr. Barragan Street by a heavy vehicle driven by a drunk called Manuel Zomudio Martinez, who has been detained in the 6th delegation. €1. €1 from what can be seen, the destiny of this man was marked. 20 years. A train had amputated his legs when he fell under its wheels on the track at Tlalpan. And not far away from where that first terrible accident occurred was where he met with his frightful end. Thus finishes the text of the fatal article. The journalist plays prophet and mentions the law of destiny, believing the destiny of this unhappy man was to die broken in pieces. We do not negate the law of cause and effect, but it is difficult for a simple journalist to know if this type of tragedy is the result of the law of destiny or the law of accidents. It is absurd to say in a prophetic tone that all accidents figure in our horoscope and that destiny is their secret cause. Certainly many accidents are a result of destiny, but not all accidents are a result of destiny. In reality, 99% of road accidents are a product of imprudence. It seems incredible that a poor man like the fellow mentioned in this tragedy have not managed to alter even minimally the laws of transit and circulation. It is barely believable that human society is so cruel and heartless. A life full of tragedy with such a fatal conclusion was not sufficient to move the heart of human society. A man who could have made a home, a man that could have been useful to society, was condemned to die disgracefully and also to live in disgrace without there being, as a consequence, any modification of the transport system in the streets of the city. This demonstrates clearly the level of irresponsibility in which humanity finds itself. A famous writer considered that the quantity of deaths due to accidents of transit, according to annual statistics, is equivalent to the millions of deaths in the First World War. This appears incredible, but everything continues the same, nothing changes. The accidents continue daily without human society making even a minimum effort to stop them. To people this appears natural, even normal. In reality, this is only possible in people that are asleep, indolent and cruel. We should recognize that human beings have not woken up yet. They have their consciousness asleep. Only in this way can we explain why this barbarism does change. This should however, be an excuse to continue with this murder by accident. The time has arrived to comprehend that we are cruel and heartless. When we profoundly comprehend that we are cruel and heartless, then in a spontaneous form compassion can arise within us. In part, the governments of the earth are responsible for all these painful tragedies related to transport, and in part they are not responsible. If society is cruel and heartless, then the governments will also be cruel and heartless. In synthesis, we can affirm that society is the extension of the individual and that government is the extension of society. The government represents the people. As are the people, so are the governments. When we visited a certain country that had lived for many years under the boot of a terrible military dictator, we could observe with astonishment that each head of family was a dictator in his own house. If there was a country on earth with truly responsible individuals that respected human life, we could be sure that they would have a wise government that would truly respect the life of each citizen. A truly just government would establish wise laws to control the systems of circulation and transit in the cities. Today the cities are full of traffic congestion, cars, trains, and multitudes of people. Daily there are heartbreaking scenes. Mothers that die with their children in their arms, mown down by the machines that drive in a rush around the city streets. Children, old people, invalids etc. fall under the wheels of the vehicles. There is no pity for anyone. There is not one atom of compassion. No one is worth anything in the city. It is possible to write moving episodic painful dramas about the things that occur daily in urban life with road accidents. Beings that live happily, noble wives, mothers that adore their children, and respectful men have all been the victims of cars and trams. Many homes have been left with orphans and without desolation. This is the result of transport accidents, but despite this all continues as before and all appears most natural. The systems of circulation and transit are not modified. No one feels the pain of another, no one gives importance to the suffering of his fellow humans. The individual only remembers that these painful accidents exist when it happens to him. When this happens, he blames all the world, protests and blasphemes etc. This is the way of the world, full of people with their consciousness asleep. They live in a complete state of stupidity. No one wants to see their cruelty and indolence. If each individual of human society became more understanding and understood profoundly his own cruelty, then charity would arise in each heart, and this charity would manifest in collective actions and complete reforms of the transport systems. The streets should be for the pedestrians. The movement of vehicles could be made subterranean or overhead. In this way there would not be so many tragedies and disgraces. In this form there would not be men cut in half or dying, as in the case of the unhappy man cited at the beginning of this chapter. It is very true that people walk around the streets absorbed in their own thoughts. This is the cause of many accidents. We can't deny that humans are asleep and walk through the streets like sleepwalkers, profoundly dreaming. All this is very true, but for this reason it is urgent to reform the transport systems. The drivers demand that the pedestrians walk around alert and vigilant in order to avoid accidents. That the drivers of vehicles wish for this is marvelous, but the reality is distinct. All the world lies absorbed in his thoughts, everyone walks around dreaming. Even those that live more awake, who have learnt to be more prudent and take care when they cross the streets etc., have moments in which they don't remember that cars exist. One instant like this, one moment of forgetfulness is enough for us to fall under the wheels of a car. That this type of accident occurred in the beginning when the age of the automobile began is more or less normal, but that which is not normal and is, in fact, absurd and stupid is that now in the 20th century with cars of the latest model, there are many barbarities of this type, completely unsuspected by the cannibals of Africa. Cannibals kill to eat. They do it for the wild instinct of conversation, that is all. The civilized drivers of vehicles, however, kill because they are in a rush, because of imprudence, stupidity, lack of respect for life. They are worse than cannibals. A man that is truly awake and truly responsible would do all in life except drive a car in the city streets. Only to the asleep, only to the negligent, would it occur to conduce a car among the human multitudes. Really, the city streets and the systems of transit and circulation are now outdated. It is stupid and absurd to mix the circulation of the multitudes with the circulation of vehicles. Human civilization becomes ridiculous when we see desperate people trying to cross the road, running from the killer wheel, or groups of humans on corners pleading for an opportunity to cross the street. All of this is a lack of civilization, all of this shows a lack of culture in the peoples of the earth, all of this shows a lack of intelligence. It would only occur to a madman or an idiot that all of this is good. We believe that subterranean roads in the urban areas would be a solution to this great problem. It is useless to blame pedestrians for all the transport accidents. They have not awoken their consciousness yet and walk around dreaming, absorbed in their problems. They forget frequently that cars exist. It is also useless to blame the drivers. We should take into account that they are also asleep. They have not awoken their consciousness either. The best, the most intelligent, the most logical is to make technical reforms to the transport systems. All the religions, orders, sects and schools of divine wisdom could demonstrate their charity by working with the government of the earth to help this suffering humanity. It is necessary to make the solution to this problem, and this is the moment indicated to demonstrate through action love for our fellow humans. In practice we have seen that viaducts that enable cars to pass at a higher level have given excellent results. The viaducts, apart from relieving traffic congestion in the streets and saving many lives, are also useful for fast transport. There is an urgent necessity for a special invention for the saving of lives and the avoidance of crashes between vehicles. It is our opinion that all vehicles, whether used on land, air or sea, should have a centrifugal force that pushes any person, machine or thing that threatens an inevitable crash, out of its field of action. We firmly believe that the time has arrived to learn to use solar energy wisely in order to run our cars, ships and planes etc. We know well that mineral and vegetable fuels are damaging for all organisms. It is necessary that all crossroads and corners be better organized in order to avoid accidents. It is absurd that drunks and immature youths should drive cars. The authorities should take severe measures against such cases of moral irresponsibility. Chapter 4. Infant delinquency. In a newspaper from Mexico City we found a scandalous article written against 3 unhappy children, one of 8, one of 10 and the other of 12. The article had the cruel headline: €80 caged themselves inside Sears, changed clothes and, once elegant, slept. €. Hilarious adventure of 3 vagabonds that wanted to dress well and sleep better. €. Even if only for a night. €. The author of this article written against these 3 unhappy and helpless children writes as if he were talking about 3 40 or 50-year-old murderers that have escaped from prison. The author of said article does not find the tender age of these unhappy and abandoned creatures to be of importance. The text of this brutal and cruel article is the following. €80 appeared on the panorama of the capital's criminal underworld. 3 vagrants, then comes the names of the 3 expert thieves that took their audacity to the point of closing themselves inside the Sears Roebuck shop in the streets of San Luis Potosi, and like insurgents, passed the night looking for the best clothes in accord with their age. They are 8, 10, and 12 respectively, and once they had converted themselves into €1 or it kids €1 they went to the furniture department, where each one chose the softest most comfortable beds and slept profoundly. €. At 8 in the morning when the administrator of the establishment arrived he was informed that some of the window displays, where there had been children €s clothes on display, had been found in complete disorder and that the footprints of strangers had been found in various parts of the shop. €. or radio patrols were advised, a search was made, and to his surprise of all in the furniture department 3 children were found sleeping, legs sprawled across the beds. They awoke with a start and the eldest said to his accomplices, €. I said to you lads that we would fall asleep. €. And we had dressed up so elegant. €. The 3 had put on new clothes from head to foot, underwear, good shirts, each one had put on as many as 3 hats and waterproofs. Over the underwear they had put swimming trunks. They had the idea of going to Acapulco. The 3 lads said that they had decided to get themselves closed inside the shop. They had hidden themselves in the corner of a warehouse and waited for the night when they had come out and dedicated themselves to choosing the best clothes. The police took them to the 8th delegation from where they were sent to the tribunal for minors. So concludes the article. In reality it is not prison where these children should end up. These young delinquents were created by society. In a human society that is truly responsible these child delinquents would not exist. Society has left these unhappy children in complete abandonment. In the streets of the cities thousands of unhappy children and orphans come and go begging for food. Human society and the governments of the earth do not give importance to the pain of these innocents, and when they commit a crime, as in the case cited, instead of being taken to a good school for cultured children, they are sent to prison. Prison does not reform, it damages and perverts. In this way these children were placed at the fringes of crime by a cruel society and in the end put in a school for crime, prison. Here these children learn from other children that are more advanced, precisely that which they should not learn. There they will learn to be real thieves, muggers, etc. Prison as a system of reform has failed in all the countries of the earth. It has been demonstrated that prison morally corrupts human beings. Prison does not reform anyone. If we analyze closely the case of the 3 young lads mentioned in this chapter, we will see first of all abandonment. These children wandered the streets in a state of complete abandonment. Second, lack of clothing and inferiority complex. The 3 children were not decently dressed by human society. The 3 lads, due to the complex caused by their nudity and misery, wanted to dress elegantly. Human society, the society that accuses them before the solemn verdict of public consciousness, was not able to dress them elegantly. It did not recognize their right to dress well, and so the result was this crime. Jesus the Christ said, "Let he that is without sin cast the first stone." This cruel and soulless society that abandons children in the streets, this perverse and degenerated society that negates children the right to dress well, the right to eat well, the right to study in a good school because they make the a crime of not having money, Really, this society is no so free of sin that it can cast the first stone at these abandoned children. If the parents of these children have died, if they are orphaned, if they are so poor and defenseless, why does human society not educate them in elegant schools together with the so-called eager children if it is so honorable and noble? Are these children animals? Are they not human beings? Is the blood of these children not red like the blood of the eager children? Human society does not have the right to condemn what it has created. The case of these children is the fruit of society. They are the fruit of the society that publicly and cruelly condemns them. What would be said to an inventor that publicly condemns his own invention? Society is victim of its own invention. Society condemns its own invention. This society that presumes itself to be Christian abandons children and lets them wander in the streets hungry and half naked. How far are these civilized Christians from understanding Christ when he said, let the children come to me because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. How far is humanity from understanding what it really means to be Christian? The time has arrived to urgently realize the social Christ. These orphan children need true places of education, elegant schools. They should be educated where the good children are educated, because these children are just as much children as the so-called eager children. These children need schools and clothes that are just as good as those of the rich, because these children are as human as the rich children. It is absurd to send these children to miserable schools with the pretext that they are schools for the abandoned. This is cruel and forms an inferiority complex in the children. They grow up with complexes. They feel humiliated by human society and are filled with resentment against this society that has discriminated so villainously against them, as if they were as human as the so-called eager children. The result of this discrimination is the crime later on. The child grows until he is a man, and after, full of resentment, he throws himself into crime. In this way, society becomes the victim of its own invention. This is precisely the instant in which all the religions, schools, orders, and lodges should demonstrate their universal charity, that they have preached so much. It is necessary that the religions that are called upon to serve eternal values unite between them in order to work for those children that need luxurious schools, food, elegant clothes, etc. If all religions, schools, and sects left behind their ancient religious jealousies and united in order to realize this work in favor of the abandoned children, it would be possible to make a better world. Chapter 5. Money. Money in itself is neither good or bad, it all depends on the use we make of it. If we use it for good, it is good, and if we use it for bad, it is bad. We cannot negate that today, due to human barbarity, money has become a basic factor in practical day-to-day life. The grave part is not in getting money but in the greed for it. Humanity today is very greedy. People depend on money for happiness, they want money and more money. They are not content with food, clothes, and shelter. They want more money than is necessary for food, clothes, and shelter. We know individuals in the capitalist system to have more than 1,000 houses that give them juicy monthly incomes, and what is more, they have farms and cars of the latest model with which to transport themselves around. These types of people do not need 1,000 houses to live in, neither do they need much land to cultivate food. Even less do they need 30 or 40 luxury cars in order to get them from one place to another. Really, these types of individuals have wasted their time miserably, dedicating their energies towards getting all of these useless things. Certainly these individuals are idle vagabonds of the mind, fantastic utopian dreamers. The government should not stop the free initiative of the people or of individuals, but should establish strong rules for these capitals. This type of powerful people should pay the largest taxes for use in public works, education, hygiene, etc., etc. Furthermore, in the question of monthly parting of surplus between workers, it is clear that the capital should end up in the hands of the workers. This capital should belong to he or she that works it. The workers work the capital. We need money, this is obvious, but when money is converted into a psychological necessity, when we use it for ends other than the most necessary, when we depend upon it in order to get fame, prestige, social position, then money assumes an importance in the mind that it does not really have. It assumes a disproportionate and exaggerate importance, and from this originates the struggle and all the tremendous problems in the fight for its possession. We should distinguish between the fundamental necessities and the psychological necessities. Food, clothing, and shelter are vital necessities, this is obvious. Social position, great casinos, playing tables, latest fashions, luxury cars, etc., these are not necessary, this is absurd. At the base of all this is the ego and its desire for satisfaction. The ego enjoys itself feeling satisfied. The I looks for satisfaction, it wants satisfaction, and it is normal that it should look for those sensations that can give it the desired satisfaction. The ego wants sensations of wealth, good feasts, sensations of power, luxury, and vanity, all with the unique proposal of feeling satisfied. We should comprehend deeply the nature of sensation and satisfaction if, that is, that we truly want the dissolution of the I. Sensation and satisfaction are tricks of the mind. We should liberate the mind from these tricks, and this is only possible by medium of comprehension. It is urgent to begin by comprehending in an integrated form those sensations and satisfactions that are most familiar. It is necessary to establish here, precisely here, the precise and adequate foundation for the comprehension. We need to observe our souls and have consciousness of our own sensations and personal satisfactions. There are many types of satisfaction and sensation, and in order to obtain them, we make the error of losing our time miserably, dedicated only to getting a fortune. Some want sensations of wealth, power, command, etc. Others want sexual sensation, women, etc. that inevitably lead to miserable, indignant, and dirty satisfactions. Those that look for dirty satisfactions, those that look for stupid satisfactions, do not have the least inconvenience in exploiting their fellows. They become frighteningly cruel, greedy, avaricious, and cunning. Analyse yourself, dear reader. What are the sensations you most like? What types of satisfactions do you most desire? If you, dear reader, really want to dissolve the I, it is necessary to comprehend deeply and in all levels of the mind what your personal sensations and satisfactions are. Sensation and satisfaction serve as the basis of the I. When we comprehend our relationship with money, then the pain of detachment and the frightful suffering produced by competition is ended. It is not a case of renouncing money or being greedy for it. What is important is to know how to relate ourselves to it in the correct way. We know of the case of a man that never had money. He visited people dedicated to spiritual studies, and all of those people gave him food, clothes, and shelter. This man said, I don't need money, because when I am hungry one of my friends will give me food. When I have thirst one of them will give me something to drink. If I need to travel someone will give me the fare. If I need to rest in some garden I sit in a seat in order to rest, and the gardener works for me. The house owner has beautiful furniture so I can sit in €. There is no doubt that this man was a tremendous egoist, in love with himself, always thinking in what others could give him but never thinking in giving or in making life better for others. This is how crime is also concealed amidst incense and prayer. We should not fall into these kinds of errors. It is indispensable to learn to relate ourselves to money. We need money in order to cover our immediate physical necessities. Disgracefully, necessity is transformed into greed. Today our relationship to money is based on greed. We should learn to differentiate between our immediate physical necessities and our psychological necessities. It is necessary to know when necessity ends and greed begins. Today people do not content themselves with food, clothes, and shelter, they want to get money and more money for things that are not food, clothes, and shelter. The psychological I, realizing its own emptiness in misery, wants to be big and great, and in order to do this looks for more and more money. The greedy suffer and cause suffering. They make life bitter for themselves and make life bitter for others. Greed is the secret cause of hate and of the brutalities of the world. Many times these brutalities are carried out in the name of the law. If we want to finish with greed in the world, we should begin by finishing with greed inside ourselves, because we are the world. We need to understand in depth all of the complex processes of greed if we really want to get to the point of dissolving the I. It is urgent to understand in an integral form the process of greed on all levels of the mind. Only in this way can we realize upon the earth the social Christ. It is necessary that the democratic governments make the systems of credit democratic. Today, all systems of credit are bourgeois and cruel. Credit is only given to the powerful but not to the poorest workers. The government should make credit democratic. It is necessary that the humble road sweeper, the elegant doctor, the normal policeman and the general of the division, the humble waitress and the carrier of heavy loads all participate together in the different systems of credit. The Latin American Christian Socialist Party should fight for the democratization of credit. It is not just that men and women with their working skills should succumb to hunger and misery when there is so much money. It is necessary to learn to use money wisely. Only in this way can we end hunger and misery. If it is certain that the individual should adapt himself to society, it is also certain that society should adapt itself to the individual. It is tremendously cruel and absurd that money is given on credit to the powerful but not to the workers. Making credit democratic could end hunger and misery. Making credit democratic would transform the economic life of the people, making them rich with creative work. There is lots of money, the problem is that it is badly distributed and on the doorstep of the rich unhappy people weep. Today credit is only for the powerful, and in this way the saying €1 to he that has a horse they give a horse, and to he that does not have a horse they give a kick €1 is fulfilled. Chapter 6. The Institution of Providence and Social Welfare. If really we want to create the authentic and legitimate democracy, we need to establish in all of the countries of Latin America the institution of providence and social welfare. Even though it is certain that the individual needs to become adapted to society, also it is true that the society must become adapted to the individual. The institution of providence and social welfare exactly fulfills this valued human aim. The state must be parents for the common people. The state must be less cruel, less merciless, less barbaric. The institution of providence and social aid is destined to solve many problems that have given to our society a very ugly and painful appearance. In a Latin American country we knew a poor school teacher's case that, in spite of having grown old working in her professorship, when she was about to die was not retired. She had educated new generations, she had become exhausted teaching. The salary of this poor laborer of the educational field was same as that of beggars. The one and only thing which gives hope through an unhappy era is the possibility of achieving a very distant freedom, the longed for retirement someday, and certainly she achieved it on the eve of her death, when she was already throwing up blood through the nose. No doctor was able to save her, she was suffering from cancer. If the institutions of providence and social welfare would have existed, things would have been very different. Unfortunately, the aforementioned institution is still just a future project. The business about retirement is dependent on the institution of providence and social welfare. It is necessary to understand that the worker has complete right to rest and to retirement. It is not just to exploit miserably the worker, to squeeze the sweat of his youth out of him and next to cast him out onto the street. The great statesman Al-Badi said, in a great political system they enjoy their share altogether, and each one enjoys the whole of the share. Consequently, the social interests must be arranged through the state within a symmetry of interests, so that they do not turn out to be infantile and rehearsed. This happens with the retirements. For some working people of the nation there are laws pertaining to retirement, and they do not exist for others. If we want to ward off the horrible monster of communism in Latin America, we need true social justice. It is absurd that the states provoke with their injustices strikes, organized obstruction of production, acts of violence, shouts of protest, etc., etc., etc. The state was not created to create problems, the state was created in order to resolve problems. In all the really civilized countries, or ones that presume to be civilized, the institutions of providence and social welfare must be founded. That institution would solve with efficiency the problems of retirement, pensions, unemployment, incapacity for work, etc., etc., etc. To create such an institution for providence and social welfare, money would be needed, and a lot of money, but fortunately the world is full of money. The crucial thing is to know how to distribute it wisely. Even though it is true that exist, also he is many unjust taxes certain that they can apply many exact taxes. Even though it is true that there exist many unjust taxes, also it is certain that many just taxes are laid down. The head of a household, if he has money to do a great party at his house, also is just that he cooperate with a tax for institutions of providence and social welfare. Thus he pays off the sleeplessness that he causes for his neighbors. He is glad that his money goes towards doing good, knowing that in his whole life it is difficult to do good. The individual that has the bad habit to smoke, it's good that he pay for his vice, that he cooperate with a tax for the institution of providence and social welfare. The drunkard that torments humanity with his binges must pay the tax for his vice. The unmarried man, since he does not even have woman, at the very least must cooperate with his tax for this institution. The hour has arrived to bring into being the stamp duty for the institution of providence and social welfare. This stamp duty is to be in use on all transport tickets, whether for overland, for water or for air. All letters, all documents, any sorts, all certificate, should be able to carry this single stamp. All theatrical tickets, cinemas, bullfighting, football, circus, etc., etc., must take this stamp. It is necessary for the people to learn that to have a good time, they can have a good time by cooperating with people, that it should no longer be no for the poor person. The people is necessary for me to have fun, learn he can have fun to cooperate with people that no longer to know for the poor person. They must impose a tax on the large companies, like insurance companies, credit brokers, stockbrokers, etc., for the benefit of the institutions of providence and social welfare. They must demand contribution of lotteries, tax required to go to the movies, frozen assets, etc. would bring vast amounts to the income tax. Taxes imposed on games should remain, on the horse racing and motor cars, tax, etc., etc., etc. Thus this institution would have monetary funds enough to attend to all humanitarian problems. It is necessary for the state to finish with unjust taxes and establish correct taxes. The working people in these times have to pay terrible unjust taxes that don't at all benefit themselves and very often harm themselves. The institution of providence and social welfare is an immediate need for all of the nations. The institution of providence and social welfare is destined to resolve as many vital problems as music, old age, dereliction, extreme poverty, unemployment, etc. The institution of providence and social welfare must judge with bread in one hand and in the other the sword to avoid many abuses. The institution of providence and social welfare must have police with strength and inquiring secretly to know who the persons receiving welfare is, and who really needs to claim it and who does not need it. Chapter 7. The Mind-Heart. The mind-heart of the intellectual animal mistakenly called human is full of vain theories and mental suppositions that can lead us to nothing good. The modern intellectuals want to make a new world according to the fanciful model that they have fabricated in their mind. The political leaders make amazing promises to the suffering and hungry crowds in order to win power, and once they have satisfied their ambitions, they laugh at the poor idiotic nation. The world is in crisis and has wars and rumors of wars, promises and mockeries, executions by shooting and political games that are fought by everyone everywhere. It is absurd to suppose that we can get out of this social chaos with all its fights and destitutions, if individually we do not resolve ourselves factually to a radical and definitive change. The strikes at the state and the bloody dictatorships are useless, these revolutions of blood and liquor. If really we want an absolute radical change, we need to first change very individually. That we are like individuals, he is the world. Really the world is the individual because the world is the sum of individuals. The problem in the world is the same as the problem of each individual. If the individual does not change internally, neither will the world change still, when many mean to change it on the basis of extremist doctrines, bloody revolutions, abominable dictatorships, etc. If we carefully study our intimate problems, we have to reach the logical conclusion that no leader can resolve those problems for us. What I am, so is in fact the party, the group of people, the family, the society, the country. The individual is the first and the last of the order of all things. We need radical transformations if we want out of this bitter and painful civilization. We need to each one of us transform, and in a truly very intimate way. We need with added urgency to establish with firmness in our mind the positive ethics of spirit. When the gross worldly moral values occupy our mind, the result is hunger, destitution, war, ignorance, diseases, etc., etc., etc. Only on the basis of profound understanding can we resolve in positive and true form all the economic and social problems that afflict and torture us. The oppression and the exploitation, the aggressiveness and the economic cruelty of these times, it is due to the neglect of the eternal values of spirit. Darkness does not vanish by blows, but by bringing light. Neither does error come undone by combating it with violence, but by teaching truth. The political doctrines established by means of the violence, they do not ever find a way to finish with the personalism, the greed, the ambition, the selfishness and the competition. When the human being is cornered by the law, he looks for replacement ways to get his own personal satisfaction. The substitutes become vehicles of our own errors, hatreds, egotisms, jealousy, greed, etc., etc., etc. Thus dictatorships are evaded. At the termination of the Tsar and his authentic family, he had for a substitute Lenin, Stalin, Khrushchev, and the whole clique of the Kremlin. The substitution of the head of state made of individuals heads of state, and the bourgeoisie was replaced by a new disguised bourgeoisie of proletarian. They disguised all the ancient ambitions of Russia with Marx and Lenin's doctrine. All vices and wrongdoings multiplied in secret, and the cruelty caused by the lack of the eternal moral values got worse. If we loved humanity in reality, if we want to cooperate in the initiation of this new era that is commencing, it is necessary that there be within each individual, voluntary and intelligent intimate changes. This intimate change certainly is not being produced by means of any form of violence or coercion from the sidelines, because if this was the case the result would be new social disasters and bitternesses. Intimate regeneration must be voluntary, intelligent, and with no obligation. We must be sincere with ourselves and dissect the eye with the dreadful scalpel of self-criticism. It is absurd not to criticize our own errors. The fundamental thing is to discover our errors and then to disintegrate them on the basis of analysis and very deep understanding. When an error has been totally understood in integral form, and in all of the mind's deepest levels, it gets disintegrated inevitably. This is the way we can dissolve the ego. Only with the death of the ego we are able to in reality make a better world. We need to free the mind and the heart from all classes of wrongdoings, if the truth is that we really want to change intimately for the benefit of the society. Chapter 8. Hunger and Extreme Poverty in Latin America. The League for Progress created by the dead President Kennedy is bourgeois, it is not democratic. The $20,000 million that the United States lends to Latin America, they have an inevitable sepulchre, the cellars of the banks and the strong boxes of the powerful. Let's be absolutely certain of the fact that only the rich lords of the land will be able to enjoy that money. The poor waitress of the restaurants, the humble sweeper of the streets, the long-suffering shoe cleaner, the patient peasant, etc., 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 hardly likely they, in the form of the vagrant, will have news related with that subject of the $20,000 million. The $20,000 million turn out to be a magnificent gift for the high magistrates' pockets, though they are right now needed to be used to resolve intelligently more difficult problems. There is a vulgar saying that reads thus: they opened the ark for the moose but right after he sins. The powerful always have the key of the ark. The Uncle Sam wouldn't be able to give away his fortunes to the Latin America, except he would right away wind up the hunger and the extreme poverty in the Latin American countries. The Latin American countries are apparently free and sovereign, but in the background they are not free neither sovereigns. They beat the rhythm of Uncle Sam's slaves. The Latin America not yet is capable of bastardizing itself to consent to this. All the countries of Latin America are underdeveloped. Those that think that if they distribute all of the richest treasures among the poor make a mistake if they believe they would wind up the common people's hunger. Really, not only would they not deliver those treasures to give to all of the people, rather hunger would be furthermore intensified. The one and only system that would not fail in order to finish with hunger is called industrialization. If they industrialize Latin American countries entirely, they then become free in reality because these countries can then be self-sufficient. The country that is capable of producing not only all that it consumes, but besides that more that it does not get to consuming, it converts itself into an exporter. The country that does not need to import because can be sufficient to say yes, is free in reality. The Latin America is not yet free, for the fact of the matter is it could be self-sufficient, yet the Latin America is underdeveloped. The Latin America has to buy from the Uncle Sam goods of all sorts, machines, airplanes, automobiles, etc., etc., etc. Uncle Sam demands the payment with the currency that he circulates around all the territories of the United States. Uncle Sam does not accept another type of currency. The North American currency is, with respect to the distinct currencies of the Latin American countries, too high. Each dollar of the United States is worth 12 pesos and 40 cents in Mexico. In other Latin American countries it is worth thousands of domestic pesos. The importers have to pay the United States for all the merchandise imported with dollars or with the equivalent to dollars, as if all of the countries Latin American belong to the North American territory. The consumers have to buy at a high price, at the equivalent price in dollars, because the importers cannot import cheaply. The final victim of all this tragedy is the common people, the poor people suffering, humiliated and exploited. Political economy has not delivered any favorable result. We need to create an administrative economy. Latin America needs complete industrialization in order to become free in reality. Each Latin American country must create its own administrative national economy. The problem of the world is the problem of the individual. If we want a developed country, let's develop the individual. If we want an industrialized nation, it is necessary to technically equip the individual, because what is the individual? That is society. The schools of primary secondary education must technically enable the individual. When the individual resolves his economic problem, the whole of America will have resolved its economic problem. In the Latin America, the powerful burn coffee or throw it to the sea, and they spill the so-called milk to maintain pricing. Millions of hungry persons want for themselves that milk and that coffee. The Uncle Sam laughs about all those things, and when they bother him too much, buys very cheaply. When the capital belongs to the workers, more milk will not be spilled, neither will the coffee get burnt, neither will we need to beg to Uncle Sam, the United States. The hour has arrived to learn to think for ourselves. The instant has arrived for the common people of Latin America to understand the necessity of industrialization. The moment has arrived that the authorities understand the urgency to severely punish those who starve the common people, those that burn coffee and spill the milk to preserve pricing. The Latin American common peoples are hungry, and while some die of extreme poverty, others spill the milk and burn coffee. The 20,000 million that the United States of North America get ready for the Latin American countries, not only they will not finish with hunger, rather they will complicate more the economy of the common peoples. The Latin American countries with their business about the 20,000 million in actual fact fall into very large compromises with Uncle Sam. Chapter 9. The Big Corporations. From the profound night of the centuries there exists the fraternity of crime, the tenebrous brotherhood. One who has studied the protocols of the elders of Zion will understand the plans and projects of the tenebrous brotherhood. This contains their program of action and the human relations of their manifestation. Wisely analyzing this issue of the corporations, we discovered with infinite pain that these are wonderful instruments of this very tenebrous brotherhood. In the background, the big corporations form the true governments that are hidden behind the nominal governments. The nominal governments are practically in fact directed by the big corporations. In such a way it happens that the tenebrous brotherhood control the governments and the people. We met a great corporation that practically had managed to monopolize all the essential goods in a certain country. Before that corporation existed, people bought the corn very cheap in the markets and there was no hunger. Nowadays only those with great money can buy that product because said corporation has it monopolized. Nobody but the corporation has a right to buy it and to sell it. She puts the price on it, she manipulates it unjustly. In former times independents, grinding the delightful grain, worked their own mills. Now in that unhappy country, already all the mills are controlled by the said corporation, and the poor people have to buy the product at their great prices. That corporation has brought famine to that country. Many times he buys all grains to fill his granaries, and later he sells it to foreign countries. With their unconceivable profits, massively inflating the product's value, the wicked product of the crime replaces the local merchandise as the corporation buys from outside the country grains of the worst quality for their own benefit. The common people, in the poor people's towns, they do not eat the grain that they harvest there, instead the people eat the foreign grain, the worst qualities. Grain, that with which our grandparents fattened pigs. The big corporations exploit the crude oil wells and ruin the land subsoil. In certain South American country we saw how natives were taken away by the foreign bailiffs when they dared to go inside in a petroleum-bearing region exploited by a great foreign corporation. So these natives, being citizens of a sovereign and independent country, did not have a right to travel across their own ground, the sacred land of their parents. This is in fact already an attempted murder against the independence and sovereignty of the liberated nations. Sleazy homosexual dives in the heart of these sovereign countries are created by the said class of corporations. This is the way that these nations lose their independence and become slaves. The big corporations ruin the nations and they take away their independence. The big corporations monopolize essential goods and bring famine to the people. The big corporations buy all the harvests, they put them in their granaries and resell them to the hungry towns, or they negotiate them with foreign countries. That is the sad reality of these corporations, that they do not have any other god than the gold calf. The big corporations take possession of the best industries to raise the cost of living. In certain country, a powerful corporation took possession of the mills when they understood that these represented a source of money. Every prolific industry, every good quality and necessary product falls into the cat-like claws of the big corporation sooner or later. Who composes these corporations? The personalities of the shadow, the followers of the black magistracy, the secret enemy. These murky starve the people, and they put an end to the independence of the sovereign nations. In the background, unfortunately, every government is property of the secret enemy, the enemy of the people whose vehicles of expression are corporations. It is harsh to say that the nominal governments, they are really puppet governments controlled by the secret threads of the big corporations. The people go cheerfully toward the ballot boxes to elect their rulers, and the big corporations laugh in secret at the simpler-mindedness of the common people. Because they are the ones that really govern, in such a way that all the towns of the land are deceived. These powerful corporations do not care about the system of government, or the political party, or the new rulers chosen by the common people. They are the ones that govern, and that is every bit of it. The big corporations are protected by the weapons. Nobody can resist against them because it costs freedom or life to him. It is necessary to destroy those octopuses over the common people, these instruments of the Black Lodge, but how? How? With what method? This is the problem that we need to study calmly if in reality we want to extirpate this cancerous tumor from among the breast of humanity. It is not by means of violence as we will be able to finish with the corporations. Violence provokes violence, hatred generates bigger hatred, ill will not surprisingly generate ill will. The retaliatory spirit would give more force and power to the big corporations because they are protected by the army. What can then be the method or scientific system that allows us to finish with the corporations? Which is the procedure? Corporations prey on the people. As a matter of fact, the common people support the big corporations. These could not exist without the people. When the people take away their support from the big corporations, these will disappear. The nation is the extension of the individual. If we want to solve the problem of the mass, let's begin by solving the problem of the individual. If we want to finish with the corporations, we should begin by educating the individual. The individual ignores what the big corporations are. It is necessary that the individual become completely aware of what the aforementioned corporations are. It is urgent to educate the individual. It is urgent to explain the people what these corporations are. Let's not attack these corporations. Let us not ever justify the existence of such societies. It is urgent to study in depth the functions of the corporations to become completely conscious of their existence. It is necessary to know that the individual has a sound asleep conscience. Although it seems incredible, the individual lives dreaming, works dreaming, walks dreaming. The individual needs to awaken their conscience. It is urgent that the individual creates complete consciousness of what the corporations are. This only is possible by putting an end to ignorance. The crowd ignores what the aforementioned corporations are. The masses only know them as abbreviations, S.A. If we want the mass to stop being ignorant, let's educate the individual. All the esoteric schools, lodges, systems, orders, etc., they can cooperate in this way for the public interest. All religions and sects can join us to work putting an end to the ignorance of the individual. That way we will put an end to the ignorance of the people. When ignorance disappears, darkness comes to an end. Man's worst enemy, it is ignorance. When the individual becomes completely aware of what the big corporations are, when he has complete conscience of the evil that they do to the people, when they understand in depth that he also is a victim of those societies, then he will stop cooperating with them. That is the road of success. That is the method to put an end to those corporations. Not cooperating. When the individual does not cooperate, when the individual does not support such societies, they inevitably disappear. The society is nothing but the extension of the individual. If each individual stops cooperating and supporting of said corporations, the masses will not cooperate, that's to say, they will not support such parasitic societies, and the result will be their inevitable death. The collective action against such societies will result from the individual understanding. When the individual neither buys nor sells anything to such societies, the disappearance of them will be a fact. Let's begin then with the individual. Let's explain what such corporations are to the individual, to each individual. That is the procedure. Later we will be collectively able to act in organized and systematic way. Yet now we should begin by the individual. That is all there is to it. Only it is possible to act collectively against the corporations, the day that each individual is capable of acting individually with complete and absolute conscience of what he creates. This system will seem very lengthy to the impatient people. Yet another path does not exist. The ones that want fast immediate changes, in the economic and social order, also believe rigid dogmas, right-wing dictatorships, or carry leftism to extremes. They do not allow anyone else to think, they dictate what it is necessary to consider. Every revolutionary change cheats itself out of its own objective, and the man returns to be a victim of that against which he fought. With bad means we will never achieve good goals. The economic systems, initiated in bloody revolutions and executions by shooting, they are in fact condemned to failure. Every action evokes reaction, and violence only can provoke violence. The corporations can be destroyed by violent means, but they would be reborn inevitably with new shapes, and they will create in fact new bitterness and new social chaos. Only by understanding the mechanism of the aforementioned corporations in depth, and making them completely conscious of the elaborate process of greed, will we be able to extirpate this cancerous tumor forever. We need to neither buy nor sell anything to these societies if we want to destroy them. Chapter 10. The Right to Work. Today, September 4, 1961, I am before the window panes contemplating what happens. On the street, I see in front of my house some poor unhappy mothers of the town, sitting on the living ground, the sacred land of their parents. On the floor there are various food products, fruits, vegetables, nutritious roots and beautiful flowers that embalm the atmosphere with their delicious fragrance. Some beautiful half-naked children play around you, making you happy about their poor mothers rather than worried that they must be trying to sell these products of the land to their neighbors. These poor women need to feed their little ones. These sorry fellows need to dress their half-naked children, and for that reason are at work right in the middle of the street. They are in complete exercise of a right, the right of working. Something happens all of a sudden between the turmoil of neighbors, women selling products, and the gladdening children playing. A car has stopped and a man dressed elegantly descends threatening on these sorry fellows and defenseless little mothers, and terrorized they pick up vegetables, fruits and flowers to flee terrified before the elegant gentleman that rebukes them, as he insults and humiliates them enthusiastically. Children cling onto their skirts of their poor little mothers, and next everything is deserted as if in that place nothing had happened. The wicked gentleman, satisfied of his manhood, gets inside his car and he speeds away along the roads of the city. The poor mothers were lucky to escape this time, because in other occasions this elegant gentleman did not have scruples of any type, and the peculiar ethics of his character were reinforced upon the people. He destroyed everything, and stripping the sorry fellows of whatever they sold, he was going away always happy, like the bird of prey after catching prey between their sinister claws. This man acts on the government's behalf. He is an officer, and all sorry fellows shudder with fear at him. In all the countries of America we have gazed upon just about the same tragedy. The village children do not have right to work if they do not achieve the luck of finding money to get a job on the market. Governments do not forgive the sorry fellow of the common people the crime of being poor. Compassion does not exist for the poor. The powerful ones of the land mortally hate the hungry mothers and the poor wretches that labor. The big gentlemen mortally hate the sorry fellow who dares to compete with them. It is necessary to begin to look for a remedy to this problem. It is urgent to achieve the right to work. There is strength in numbers. Just like very well organized trade unions of different classes exist and wonderful labor unions, that way also these poor mothers and these poor wretches that do not have money to rent stalls in the market should unionize themselves, educating amongst their labor unions, paying defense lawyers and initiating the patient fight for their right, for the right to work. A fight without violence get underway, without any struggle with evil means. If evil resists the evil, this brings in more force. Violence only leads the people to failure. It is necessary to fight patiently and with intelligence. The unions of hawkers can make hunger strikes. In public and in large groups. Sit-down strikes, silent, pacific parades of protests without shouts of any type nor violence of any nature. All these poor peasants after they join up, organize and unionize, will constitute a powerful army, and the ones presently powerful in the land will shake in fear before them. It is our task to make propaganda for these poor people in order to organize them for the battle. Working is not a crime. The right to work is an upright and legitimate right of the human being. Another case. I traveled as a pedestrian through the streets of a great city. The people have gathered around somebody. I come closer in order to know what is happening. A poor woman cries and asks for a little compassion with supreme pain to the policeman that has caught her sorry fellow. The sorry fellow has committed the crime of working, and Mr. Policeman does not forgive that. The poor person was Selling fruits and groceries on the street to win some few coins, that's it. The powerful men of this land themselves do not forgive it. Some pitiful wives beg the policeman for the sake of the sorry fellow, but everything comes to nothing. All of a sudden he stops a police car and the sorry fellow, in spite of his requests and tears, is dragged by force inside the car and led to the jail. The poor person had not committed another crime but the one of working for his daily bread. This age saw it as crime, and the rulers did not absolve it themselves either. A sadist. In a great city of the world we saw poor aged fellows and poor women of the town being terrorized through the tortuous streets. These sorry fellows were so utterly poor that to live honestly they dedicated themselves to selling candy, groceries of every shade and hue, etc. The poor were chased for the crime of working. An undernourished and hungry girl was present in the door of a temple, selling whatever she could to live. The unhappy creature got hit by a car driven by the cops and deprived of her merchandise. A boy wandered about the streets selling candy. The cops attacked him the same as a bandit and took away his candy. The sorry fellow fled. We knew that great city of the Western world, we watched her. The mayor of the aforementioned city was a mighty absolute lord and master, in feudal style. The poor feared him, the rich needed him, the politicians polished apples for him because he made and he took away presidents. He was the master of politics. They said a lot of things to themselves about that powerful gentleman. His orgies, prepared with decadent wastefulness, wines, women, gold, and lust, were spoken of between the people. The servants of that one were many times frightened by grand gentlemen, seeing the beautiful ones involved in the orgy bathed in blood. Nobody was saying anything, nobody protested in front of the blood and horror. The police quivered and held their tongue. Nobody dared to protest. That one, the great gentleman, was a sadist that beat the beautiful ones to take pleasure in the orgy. That city was governed by a sadistic mayor. Everywhere the pain and the crying, women bathed in blood for the crime of being beautiful, old people, children, poor persons, family men, humble women of the town stripped of their groceries or of their goods, fleeing frightened along the roads of the luxurious city. What else could be in a city governed by a sadist? That one Mr. Rich person, this politician, made the town bleed, and they all shuddered at him. One becomes full of horror when he sees the gendarmes keeping a sadist's orders. This city is over here, in the Iron Curtain, in the Europe that is said to be civilized, in the world that one says is free. There is no doubt that in America cities and mayors are also that way. All this makes us think about the need to use the weapons of the intelligence to dethrone the tyrants. The best way of finishing with those tyrants is not cooperating with them. Not to obey them, not to support them, not to play up to them. When a tyrant is very powerful he becomes unbearable. The people are really who give the power to the tyrants. Only the people can take the power away from the tyrants. It proves to be easy to unseat a tyrant when all the trade unions of the workers are united. This is difficult because bosses always try to divide the workers into competing factions to be able to exploit them. Divide and you will rule, the British say. Workers should join together to defend themselves. Workers should create their own political program.